to some and present to others our pastor, Dr. Garon Harden.
Thank you, Sister Chamber. God bless all of you, and glad to see you tonight. There's a lot of things going on. Uh, some is at the graduations. Some is watching the game. Some is sick. But you are here, and I'm here, and that makes all the difference. It makes all the difference. All right, tonight we're in Leviticus chapter 5 and 6. Father, I thank you tonight for these that are present, and I'm asking God one more time that you would let down that anointing, that yokes will be destroyed. And Satan, I bind you now that you will not be able to catch the word before it enter into the hearts of these men and women. And Father, I set myself in agreement with you that your word is going forth, and I thank you, God, that it will not return void. Use me for your glory, that these that are present will be inspired, enhanced, and enlightened. And I'll give you the glory and the praise. In Jesus' name, thank God. Amen. God bless you. All right. On tonight, we are in chapter 5 and chapter 6. What is going to happen tonight if you will be in tune? If you would be in tune. This is what's going to happen. Don't worry too much about it. I got grandkids and great grand, so I've been through all of this. Just glad they're here. What's going to happen tonight? You will be able to see a transliteration of how that they take in these laws out of Leviticus and how they use them in the common laws in the courts today. And I'm going to see how and show you how they picked up on it and what they do and what they call it and what it was called then. But these are the laws, and that's why Leviticus, now don't ever think that your judges and your lawyers, they know these laws. They know that they came from, and most of them was, about 80% of them came from the Old Testament, from Leviticus. But now they're not going to tell you. But when they hear them and you explain law to them, because see what a lawyer have to do for the judge, and the judge was previous lawyers, in order to win his case, he have to quote law to the judge. That's the only thing they're going to hear. They don't hear speculation, they hear law. So if we learn God's law, and basically that's all God hears. God hears his word. And so when we speak God's word back to him, that's when we get what the word says. Because he said, my word is going out of my mouth and it will not return void. That means it won't come back empty. And that means that every word that God said have some type of power that went out with it. And when you put the word out right, it only come back just the way it said. But if you put your word out, there's no power in my word. I can say, ouch, hurt, all I want to. It's just a noise. Maybe somebody may hear me and have a little mercy on me, but there's not power in my word. So, all right, and we are in the 5th chapter. Somebody want to read the first 10 verses?
And if a soul sin and hear the voice of swearing, and is witness whether he hath seen or known of it, if he do not utter it, then he shall bear his iniquity. Or if a soul touch any unclean thing, whether it be a carcass of an unclean beast, or a carcass of an unclean cattle, or a carcass of an unclean creeping thing, and if it be hidden from him, he also shall be unclean and guilty. Or if he touches the uncleanness of a man, whatsoever uncleanness it be, that a man shall be defiled withal, and it shall be hid from him. When he knoweth of it, then he shall be guilty. Or if a soul swear, pronouncing with his lips to do evil or to do good, whatsoever it be that a man shall pronounce with an oath, and it be hid from him, when he knoweth it, he shall be guilty in one of these. And if he shall be, when he shall be guilty in one of these things, that he shall confess that he hath sinned in that thing. And he shall bring his trespass offering unto the Lord for his sin which he hath sinned, a female from the flock, a lamb or a kid of the goats for the sin offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for him concerning his sin. And if he be not able to bring a lamb, then he shall bring for his trespasses which he hath committed 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons unto the Lord, one for sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. And he shall bring them unto the priest, who shall offer that which is for the sin offering first, and wring off his head from his neck, but shall not divide it asunder. And he shall sprinkle of the blood of the sin offering upon the side of the altar, and the rest of the blood shall wrung out and be gotten at the bottom, of the altar. It is a sin offering. And it shall offer the second for a burnt offering according to the manner, and the priest shall make an atonement for him for his sin which he hath sinned, and it shall be forgiven him.
All right, now, first of all, we see that there are procedures that the court goes by. And there are different fines for different, when people commit a crime, they're not all in one bag. There are different procedures for different crimes. Now, they said if a person, in the first verse, it said, if a soul sin and hear the voice of swearing, and is in a witness, whether he seen it or known of it, don't utter it. In other words, if you see somebody commit a crime and don't hold your remarks, and we know that people do that today because they're afraid, then you are just as guilty as the person that committed it, because you held your peace and you wouldn't speak out. That's they can put you in jail. A lawyer can go to jail for contempt of court, because they asked them to say something and they don't say it. Now, some people can plead the fifth, but a lawyer can get contempt and they can put him in jail and said, keep him in there until you speak out, answer the question. All right. Then the next thing, if you look at, there's a health law. He said that if you touch anything dead, because they didn't have all of these procedures that we have now, for diseases. So if you touch something dead, a carcass or whatever, it wasn't just touching the dead, but the disease that went with them, there was no cure for them, some of those things in those days. And so there was a health law telling them what they had to do. All right. Now, the other law is defamation of character. He said if you swear against a person, you can be sued for somebody libeling you, talking against you and lying on you, and if you can prove it, that's liable. Look at what Rosanna's just lost, a whole millions of dollars for everybody because of libel. Look like more than her ought to be fined, but I'm not going to say nothing. But that was a law that came in, that been there. They got that from here. You swear at a person, say something, call them all the name, and they haven't did anything to you to bring that on, then that is a problem. That's a problem of libel. So here it is right here. And then what I like about God, that shows you the mercy of God. Now, remember they had to pay a penalty. They had to pay a penalty. All right? They call it a penalty of sin offering or sin offering or trespass offering. But they fine you. So it's the same. That's what that offering is. Where do you think the money goes? Your fine goes. It helped to pay the judge, the public defender, the prosecutor, the DA, the DA's office, all the people that work. So they fine you for running a stop sign because they got an ordinance that you don't do it. So you get fined. That's the penalty you pay. And then sometimes there's a court fee. There's a court fee. So you have to pay that. All of those are penalties. This is from sin and for trespass. Now, I think last week I told you what trespass was. Who remember what trespass is? What's the difference in trespass and just sinning? You cross the line. If you see the police officer, when they put the red tape around, you can't cross there. If you cross that, they can arrest you because you trespass. You went over a law that is written, do not trespass. Or there's iniquity. Now, iniquity is a sin of the mind. That means that you are contemplating hurting somebody in your mind before you do it. And then there is sin itself. And sin is the word hamartias, which means you missed the mark. It's just like you had a target over there, you didn't hit it. So you're always missing the mark. So that's missing the mark is that unintentional sin. He said even if they touched a dead person unintentionally, they still had to give an account of it. Yes?
Yeah, suppose it's not his fault. A guy is right next to you, and he has a heart attack and drops dead and falls against you.
Okay, then now we don't go to jail for that, and we don't have to do nothing for that. But then they did. Unintentional. They had to offer up a trespass offering, a sin offering, because they touched the dead. So what we have to do is thank God for Jesus, because grace wiped all of that out. Grace wiped all of that out. But those laws are still in effect. All right, let's say if a person besides you had a heart attack, and you was on a bus, an airplane, or whatever, and you knew this person was gasping for breath and all of that, and you just sat there, and even when the person died, you didn't call the steward, didn't notify anybody, didn't try to help him. That is somewhat you are at blame. You at fault because maybe somebody was on there could have helped the person, and you offered no help. And so all of these laws was preventable, but the laws of trespass had to do with actually 4 or 5 things. It was about the property that was in trust. It was about lying about the property that you were the ownership and you wasn't. It's about stealing a person's cows and animals and branding them for yourself. It was about obtaining property through deceit. So all of those, they were doing that. And it was probably hard to keep up with because what did they have to mark off the land with but a stake? And then, somebody else would witness that they said this was their land, da, da, da. So they didn't have a whole lot to go on, but there was laws to protect what they had. But God was so merciful that he would allow them in the penalty if they didn't have a bull, they didn't have a goat, didn't have a sheep, then a turtle dove. Or the last thing was a pigeon, 2 pigeons, or the sanctuary offering. But what God was saying, you're never going to get by with sin for nothing because there's a wage to sin. The wages of sin is death. So there's always a price you're going to pay for sinning. So you're never going to get away with sin free, even though you think you have escaped. You haven't. There are things that you may have done when you was young, and I hate to say that God forgave us for a whole lot of stuff we did, but some of that stuff you're going to pay for. Even after you've spoken in tongues, danced, and shouted. I'm telling the truth. See, I played football when I was young in school, and I hurt my leg playing football. And now, at my 70 years of age, those scars talk to me. They say, you remember you fell? You remember you took that lick? Got up, brushed off. The coach said, you all right? Yeah, fine. Put me back in here. You have a question?
How do generational curses start? Because I feel like when the parents sin or they continue doing something.
Okay, that's one that's been forgiven. It's not passed down to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th generation now. Now there can be a generational sin, a generational curse. And here's what a generational curse is. That's when your great-grandfather, I'm not talking to you, my great-grandfather was on drugs. Then my grandfather got on drugs. That was his son. Then his children got on drugs. And the next generation is on drugs. Now there's somebody got to break that curse. Because if they don't, it's going to keep going down to generational. So somebody got to break the curse. All right? So that's that, but the sin passed from the father to the mother and to the children and so forth for the 3rd and 4th generation. That is cut off in the blood of Jesus. But you can start that anytime in your family. Anytime in your family, you can see it, dominating effect. And it can be cut off.
All right, when you had mentioned a few minutes ago about a person that gasping for air and don't nobody do anything.
No, I said if you're sitting by a person on a plane or something, and that person is gasping for air, and and you don't say anything to call and ask holler out, hey, somebody can help this person, and you sit there and let that person gasp and they pass out and you still don't say nothing, then you're liable in some cases for that person death. Even if they don't do anything to you, in your conscience, in your mind, you're liable.
Also, if you know CPR,
Yes.
and you don't administer it when someone needs it, you can be held liable. for
Right.
that as well.
Yes.
Then on the other hand, you can do something to somebody and they say it's your fault that he died because you shouldn't have did nothing to him. You shouldn't have moved him. You shouldn't have touched him.
Well, I don't know about touching them, but I know you shouldn't move them.
Yeah, something like that. They're gonna blame
Because you might lay them in the wrong way, or you may cut off something. Okay, I see you, and
Wouldn't that be called a sin of omission?
that's a sin of omission.
And
So-
there's laws to protect that person too, if you go to help somebody. Now, if you didn't see the person go down or become unconsciously, you don't move that person because they could be broken neck or whatever.
Yes.
That one, you try to protect that. But you have CPR and you are certified, you can administer that CPR to that person.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, the reason why I asked that question was because it was just something I had went through before when I used to be a security officer. Like there was a lady, something was wrong with her, and then somebody really couldn't help her. So I tried my best to like give her the Heimlich maneuver, and I don't know what it was that was going on, and I had to call for help to send me water, and I called a paramedic, and I wrote an incident report. Then people had told me not like you handled it well, you did good.
Well, you're right. You call the paramedics. You call the paramedics. So they're not going to blame you for that. All right, let's get the next 10 verses. I think there's only 8 left.
I'm reading the New Living.
Verse 11, yes.
Okay. If you cannot afford to bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, you may bring 2 quarts of choice flour for your sin offering. Since it is an offering for sin, you must not moisten it with olive oil or put any frankincense on it. Take the flour to the priest, who will scoop out a handful as a representative portion. He will burn it on the altar on top of the special gifts presented to the Lord. It is an offering for sin. Through this process, the priest will purify those who are guilty of any of these sins, making them right with the Lord, and they will be forgiven. The rest of the flour will belong to the priest, just as with the grain offering. Then the Lord said to Moses, if one of you commits a sin by unintentionally defiling the Lord's sacred property, you must bring a guilt offering to the Lord. The offering must be your own ram with no defects, or you may buy one of equal value with silver as measured by the weight of the sanctuary shekel. You must make restitution for the sacred property you have harmed by paying for the loss, plus an additional 20%. When you give the payment to the priest, he will purify you with the ram sanctified as a guilt offering, making you right with the Lord, and you will be forgiven. Suppose you sin by violating one of the Lord's commands. Even if you are unaware of what you have done, you are guilty and will be punished for your sin. For a guilt offering, you must bring the priest your own ram with no defects, or you may buy one of equal value. Through this process, the priest will purify you from your unintentional sin, making you right with the Lord, and you will be forgiven. This is a guilt offering, for you have been guilty of an offense against the Lord.
All right. So, you see, you had to pay if you did something knowingly or unknowingly. And when they paid the penalty, which we would call the ticket price for what you did, they paid extra, 20% extra than what the cost. So if somebody took something from you, we're in chapter 6 now. If somebody taken something from you and it was $500, then you had to give them 20% more above that. So that was in restitution. Plus, if you didn't have that, the animal that you gave had to be able to cost that much and more. And so you never paid just, if you took something from a person, you just didn't give them that back. They got more. Okay? All that. Punity. Yes.
Also, say if you stole a sheep, you give the sheep back. I can understand that. Now you steal an ox. That's different.
Yep. Because
Because if
that's
you steal the ox, that ox is able to work, and you have
true.
denied that person of
work, be able to perform.
wheat, oats, barley, and so forth. So that's added onto the penalty.
It's true. So here's a way to look at it. If you steal a Volkswagen, I hope anybody don't have one. If you steal a Volkswagen and you strip it and sell the parts, and somebody else steal a Rolls Royce, now that's a big difference between a Volkswagen and a Rolls Royce. Your insurance for a Rolls Royce will cost you almost as much as the Volkswagen cost. So your penalty is going to be different because it's more. The ox was what they used for plowing. The sheep was just, the lamb was their basic, they just was meat and wool. But that ox was the one that plowed out the fields and did everything, so you had to pay more for that. Yes, that was the living, yes.
It seems to imply here that if you had to make a financial reimbursement, it was because of something holy in the sanctuary.
Well,
Holy sin.
it was a sin. All of them was, the sin was holy, but the animals that you present had to be sanctified. Now, why was it sanctified? They could not, when the priest cut the animal up, they burnt all the fat.
Yes.
The other part, they had that was for them to eat. But none of that part would go out. They couldn't take it home to their family. There was other things they could take home to their family, but they couldn't take any of that home. The other had to be burned, and then you're going to find where they had to take the ashes out. They had to put on priestly garments. You'll see that in the 6th chapter. They had to put on priestly garments while they did it, the work in the tabernacle. And then when they got ready to take it out, they put on their regular garbs. So they was telling us, we don't wear our clergy's and our services garment just out in the public to just have them on it for people to know you're a pastor, you're this or that. They weren't allowed to do it. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just saying because in verse 16 it says you only make restitution for a holy thing.
For the whole, that's what they was talking about, the animals. But all of God's, every animal that came in, that's why they would cut them and take their blood and sprinkle it around. They sanctified the animal. Because the animal was in the place of them. They was dying, without the shedding of blood, there's no remission of sin.
I understand completely, but that sacrifices through the animals were for the remission of sin, or for the atonement of sin at that time, because it was just a covering. But what I'm saying is when you make restitution, it was because of a holy thing having to do with the sanctuary.
Right, because they had to sanctify because it was in the sanctuary. That's what the tabernacle was for.
Yeah, I understand the sacrifice. I'm talking about restitution.
The restitution. So the restitution, the sanctification, saying that we're cleaning up what you messed up.
And you can't make an amends without restitution.
Right.
The difference between I'm sorry and an amends is sorry don't have no restitution.
All right, who's reading? Who's got the mic?
Chapter 6, verse 1.
Okay, 1 through 10.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, If a soul sin and commit a trespass against the Lord, and lie unto his neighbor in that which was delivered him to keep, or in fellowship, or in a thing taken away by violence, or had deceived his neighbor, or have found that which was lost, and lied concerning it, and sweareth falsely, in any of all these that a man doeth, sinning therein. Then it shall be, because he hath sinned, and is guilty, that he shall restore that which he took violently away, or the thing which he had deceitfully gotten, or that which was delivered him to keep, or the lost thing which he found, or all that about which he had sworn falsely. he shall even restore it in the principal, and shall add the fifth part more thereto, and give it unto him to whom it appertaineth in the day of his trespass offering. And he shall bring his trespass offering unto the Lord, a ram without blemish out of the flock, without estimation, for a trespass offering unto the priest. And the priest shall make an atonement for him before the Lord, and it shall be forgiven him for anything of all that he had done in trespassing therein. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Command Aaron and his sons, saying, This is the law of the burnt offering. It is the burnt offering because of the burning upon the altar all night until the morning, and the fire of the altar shall be burning in it. And the priest shall put on his linen garment, and his linen breeches shall he put upon his flesh, and take up the ashes which the fire had consumed with the burnt offering on the altar, and he shall put them beside the altar.
All right, now we see that there are laws for procedures. And if you have anything and do not have laws, they're going to be violated. But how you know when they violate when there's not a law? So that's why we have to have ordinance and have to have codes. Because if there's no ordinance, that's why every year in California and other states in the United States, and that's why lawyers, every year they have to buy books. Because there are some laws that have been appealed and put out, and there's other new laws that are coming in. If we're not careful and don't vote right, by the first of the year, there's going to be this law from the assembly that says they cannot sell Bibles in California. So, but we sat quiet and said, well, praise the Lord, they can't do that. One woman got God in God. We got the prayer out of school while we sat silent. And the reason why that the alternative lifestyle where they could marry each other, because the church sat silent while they was going to the Supreme Court. They didn't think it would happen. And so if we just be this silent church, our rights will be pulled from us. And we'll find that more of our rights are being taken because we are not praying and seeking God. And that's what the Bible said, in all our ways acknowledge him and he will direct our path. And so the court looks at this now. This all came from there. They got ordinance. They have codes, civic codes. So all of these things have to explain what you violated. In our laws as churches, this is what it's coming to. If we don't put in our bylaws and our articles steps of operation, functional, and we don't have them in there for how to function and for what we can do and what we can't do. All right? Case in point. Say, for instance, somebody violated you. And you came to me. They was in the church. You said, Pastor, so-and-so did this and that. And I say to you, okay, I can talk to them and we can get a group and talk to them, but you got to come and witness and point that person out and let them know what you said. No, I can't do that because I don't want to do it. I can't do it either. You just violated, you just tied my hand. Because if I go talk to this person and you do not validate it, then the person can sue me for defamation of character. So these are the laws that you have. So, and I'll get to you in just a minute, Garman. Okay, the next thing, we have to be very careful with people that have alternative lifestyle. They have rights. You can't get up just because you see somebody come in, you think that that's what it is, and you get up and start talking crazy, using all this old crazy language. You know, God created Adam and Eve and da-da-da, and you're this and this and that. It don't change your message. If God saved you, he can save them. And the same gospel that saved them will save you. So you don't have to try to have a gospel. You don't preach at people. You preach to people. God brought us out so he would bring anybody out. And then we are become so selfish as a church that we quite want everybody to be just like us. Well, when God made you, he was tired. He'd make nobody else like you. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to get you, but I got to get Dr. Gordon first. So, people come into the church, they don't know church. They unchurch. They still act that way. They come in with their bags and a lot of stuff they dragging in. They drag their stuff in. We brought in some stuff, but little by little we dropped it and we got out of it. We learned and we got out of it. But when we want everybody else to come in and all their stuff, we want them to throw it out. If they don't, we throw them out with their stuff. So ordinance, this is what it came from. This is Levitical. These ordinances and laws were put in place so that God could do things. You can't do things in the church just because you're the pastor and just because they used to do it. See, my old pastor would tell you, get up and get out of here. But they can't do this now. You tell somebody to get up and get out of here, and this is the church. This is a public place. Okay, when they turn it in, guess what they're going to say? Where's your conflict resolution? Where's your resolution that say, what that you in your bylaw, where to say you can just tell people to get out? Well, I don't have them. I'm the pastor. Yeah, you're the pastor. Ching dong, ching, they're going to ring the cash register. All right, now I hear you.
In the Israeli courts, or in their bylaws, you might say, they can defend themselves.
They can.
Problem. But they can't attack first.
That's right.
And there is Israelis in prison today. They're in prison because they attacked
First.
and they shouldn't have. So Israel is pretty strict on their laws. If they say this is the law, it's going to be the law, even if their people have to go to prison.
Yeah, and because they still live by the law. I was in Israel a couple of years ago. They still live by the law, and that's what they operate. But if you violate your own law, you can't live by it. And we violate our own law because our laws is for how much money you have and who's your lawyer.
Pastor, I just want to make a comment on AB 2943. The gay and lesbian and homosexual lifestyle is bringing up this law about not being able to. There's a language that they're saying that God cannot transform you, or that because they don't believe that way we believe that we can be transformed by God. We know we can. We know that only God can change us, but they don't believe that is. And so the bill seemed to want to put into effect anything that says that you can't be transformed.
It's discriminating, saying that you're discriminating against a certain group of people.
Yes.
And it's not.
It's not.
It's because here's the thing, God is not a democracy. He's a theocrat. And that theo is God. He rules by himself. Nobody voted him in, and nobody can vote him out. Nobody can vote him out.
What annoys me about the bill is that they try to imply what we believe is not true.
Right. But that's what they want to do. They put in their ways, forcing their ways on us, forcing laws on us.
That's right.
And wanting us to.
Go ahead on, but why do they want to impose that life on our children?
Well, that's what they're doing. But if we stand up,
Yes.
if we stand up, it's more of us than there is of them. and that's what it's coming to. But if you read this, you see how these laws came into effect and that there was rules that go with them. Because when people say, well, where did God come from? Prove to me where God come from. You don't have to try to prove it. All you tell them is that God didn't come from came from God. Not where he came from came from him. So tell me, where did he come from? From. Came from him, so ask from, how did he come? Okay, let me get back.
Since we on this subject, like I tell some people, if you don't believe in God, you believe in science. I said science and God might not say the same thing languagely wise, but the science will prove that the same thing does not create.
Well, one of the things that is proven, scientifically, it make them believe there is a God. So science proved that there's a God. Because what science said, if you take the same ingredients and the same formula, you'll get the same results. If you confess your sin, y'all got to see, I can't go into all this stuff. Okay, come on, we got to finish reading. We got to finish reading this. All right, the next 10 verses.
And he shall put off his garments, and put on other garments, and carry forth the ashes without the camp unto a clean place. And the fire upon the altar shall be burning in it, it shall not be put out, and the priest shall burn wood on it every morning, and lay the burnt offering in order upon it. And he shall burn thereon the fat of the peace of offerings. The fire shall ever be burning upon the altar, it shall never go out. And this is the law of the meat offering. The sons of Aaron shall offer it before the Lord, before the altar. And he shall take of it his handful of the flour of the meat offering, and of the oil thereof, and all the frankincense which is upon the meat offering, and shall burn it upon the altar for a sweet savor, even the memorial of it unto the Lord. And the remainder thereof shall Aaron and his sons eat. With unleavened bread it shall be eaten in the holy place. In the court of the tabernacle of the congregation they shall eat it. It shall not be baken with leaven. I have given it unto them for their portion of my offerings made by fire. It is most holy, as is the sin offering, and as the trespass offering. All the males among the children of Aaron shall eat of it. It shall be a statute forever in your generations concerning the offerings of the Lord made by fire. Every one that toucheth them shall be holy. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, This is the offering of Aaron and of his sons, which they shall offer unto the Lord in the day when he is anointed. The 10th part of an ephah of fine flour for a meat offering perpetual, half of it in the morning and half thereof at night.
All right, so now we do understand that a meat offering was not meat, right? Yes. It wasn't meat, it was grains. So they did that in a different way. And with the meat offering, what they call the meat offering, which was the grains, every time somebody came in with that, a portion went to Aaron's sons. Okay, Aaron's son was not just his family, it was the Levites. Everybody that was Levites, the sons of Levites. And the Levites, the reason they had to do that, the Levites had no inheritance. No inheritance. Others had inheritance. They had land. They had this and that. But the Levites didn't. The Levites lived among all the tribes. And the tribes that they lived among, they had to be fed. They had to feed their families. And the Levites was the only tribe that could retire. They could not start working. The males could not start working in the tabernacle until they was 20 years old. But when they was 50, they could retire. Why? None of the others couldn't. Well, pulling on them oxes, them goats, and dealing with hard-headed folks. Okay, y'all ain't saying nothing. By the time you was 20 and 50, you'd be crazy almost yourself. So they could retire, and they would be paid full from what they got from the tithe, they got a tenth, and that was the heed. And they could live. And that's why Jesus said, they that preach the gospel should live by the gospel. So a lot of times people's upset. And now I think that it's gone so far where we see crazy stuff done, where somebody said God told them they got to get them an airplane and all that stuff. Okay, I don't think really God said it, but that's me. Maybe he did, I don't know, but I don't think so. There's a lot of other ways of traveling. You could travel on an airplane first class without $60 million. You could take a $2 million and travel for 3 or 4 years. Matter of fact, I've been traveling for going to Memphis for 38 years, and I haven't spent $1 million yet. I haven't spent $15,000, I don't think. But anyway, that's me. I'm sorry. Blank that, cut that out your mind. Get it out. Okay, but God prepared us so that everything will work in order. All the laws of God was fair. God never gave a law that could not be kept. But man, in his conniving ways, tried to circumvent God's laws. And that's what happens now. We try to go around doing what God said. Well, we need to give them unleavened bread. Once you think about this, the priests, while they was on duty, they couldn't eat unleavened bread. Why? Leaven blows us up. And so, eating that yeast bread and working all day, they were going to be sick. So, what was he looking at? I told you it was health loss also. So God was making sure that they ate healthy. Now, I know one of the things that have hurt us as a people and hurt some of the other nationalities as a people is fried food. That grease was never meant for us to eat all of that grease. Even vegetable oil is grease. Basic, one of the safest grease or oil you can use is olive oil. Somebody said flax seeds, so forth. But when you getting pork, butter come from cows. So here's what you got to think about for butter. If you want butter, you got to beat the milk, and the cream come to the top. So if you want to be the cream of the top, you take a beating. Because that's what cream is. Anybody? We just churn the milk, churn it, and the butter comes to the top, and they scrape it off the top. So all of that stuff, you got to remember the milk. We were the people that was in the country, and they was nursing from their mother. You didn't have all these problems. You don't know what's wrong with these cows. Why are these children acting like they're wild? And you just go back and say they're drinking wild milk. Okay, maybe I'm losing somebody. Maybe I'm losing somebody. But think about that. And then most of the food has got preservative. And even the people that said whole food, it's not whole. They put something in it. They got to have something in it. It's not whole. And so we are being lied to, because think about this. If you look at the hospitals that I've been in Long Beach for 40-something years, almost 50 years. And I've seen Memorial and St. Mary triple in growth. Now, if they was trying to keep you well, it'd be cutting down. But they're not trying to keep you well. The business is what? To keep you coming back. I mean, some of the medicine that they got is unbelievable. When you see people paying $800, $1,000, or $10,000 almost to fill a prescription, you know that is gouging. When they can make the stuff for $40 or less and charge you $1,000 for a refill, for a fill. But that's what they're doing, because they want to keep the thumbs down. But these are the laws that protect you. That's why every year they change the law. They have to appeal them. And so what happened, they can't change a law until they go into effect. So they can't stop a person from making a law. I asked a lawyer once, I said, what can I do to keep from being sued? He said, nothing. You can't stop folk from suing you. Just put things in place so it make it hard for them to win. That's all you can do. You can't stop nobody. People can sue you for looking at them. I had a lady, when we had an apartment, a lady sued me because we took the toilet out and put it in the trash. It was messed up. She went and got somebody to pick the toilet out of the trash and set it beside her house and put flowers in it. And people was complaining about it, so we had to move it. And she said we took her shrine and took me to court. She made a shrine out of a toilet bowl. Okay. Yeah. When I walked in the court, the judge said, Reverend, go home. This is not going to even be heard. He said, this is not going to even be heard in my court. He was sort of mad himself. How did it get that far to his court? So you can't stop people from suing you. You just have to have something in place and know what your rights are. That's what the Bible does. The Bible teaches us our rights. It teaches us how to fight the good fight of faith. It all started. That's why I told you all that when you learn the laws here, you will see Leviticus, you will see Deuteronomy, you will see Exodus, you will see Genesis, and you will see Numbers for the rest of the Bible. Because this is the Torah, this is the laws. And these laws was implemented and still implemented today. Still implemented today. Yes, I see him. Did I get you?
Okay. Now, the Old Testament said that you eat fish with scales and tell you what you can eat and what not.
That was then because there was diseases that they could carry, and so they didn't have all the tools for sanctifying them or purifying them. But even today, if they scale them and one did not scale, and the crabs and all that stuff, they still have to put some type of purification on them to make sure that they kill some of this stuff. But even with the crabs and so forth, there's still people can't eat that with gout and all of that stuff. Some people are allergic to shellfish, like some people are allergic to peanut butter. Well, so what Jesus was saying was not what you put in the body, is what come out. He was saying that if you sanctify something and you put it in, it may not hurt you. But he was speaking of the mind. What comes out of the heart is what hurt folks. It's what's going to cause you to go to hell. But there's something you put in your mouth will hurt you. Okay. All right. I'll get your question.
I've been dealing with a Jewish lady, and you know Jews don't eat pork.
Right.
She said she grew up, and she said when she tasted bacon, she says, you know, that stuff tastes good. And I said, now listen, you're a Jew, you're not supposed to be eating that stuff. Yeah, but I like that anyway. So I saw the rabbi over there picking, he's just a little guy, he don't eat bacon or pork or anything. He was picking up them tables all by himself, and he looks about 80 years old, and he's over there, picks it up. And I told her, I said, see what happens when you don't eat bacon?
Well, I know we was in Jerusalem, when we was in Israel, there wasn't the smell of pork, bacon. There wasn't the smell of ham. There was no pork chops. There wasn't a pig in Israel that we saw. And so we went to the Palestinian. Boy, we got over there. Them Palestinians eat just like us. Boy, they had pork chop. They had pork chop, they had ham, they had bacon. And I'm telling you, boy, but here's what we did notice. In Israel, you didn't see Jews that was big. You didn't see no big, heavy Jews. Some of the men, after they got old, they had a little weight on them. But them Palestinian, boy, they were scuffing. they was hustling, I'm telling you. So it have its ups and downs. But it ain't nothing but God said to Paul said to them that if meat offend you, I won't eat no meat in your presence, but you ain't gonna stop me from eating it. So when you ain't in my presence, I'm gonna have me some meat. That's what Paul said. So we can't get caught up. See, we can be the extremists on whatever side. Don't do this. Then on the other side, don't take too much of this, and don't do that, and da-da-da. You don't want to be an extremist. Moderate. There's a whole lot of stuff. Now, sugar hurts you, but it don't mean that you don't eat any sugar. You go eat some sugar anyway. It's either carbohydrates or you eat fruit, that's sugar. That's why diabetics cannot eat. They think, well, I can eat apples and oranges, and I can eat this and grapes. No, you can't eat a lot of that. You can eat it, but you don't eat a lot because that's sugar. And your body don't know the difference between carbohydrates, whether it's in a potato or whether you're taking it from fine grain sugar. Water don't make no difference. It says, sweet, pew, I'm going to get you. So that's the thing. So here's what happened. I told you there's 3 things that cause you to change. If I didn't hear it now, 3 things that cause you to change. Number 1, if you're educated enough that you know how to. Number 2, if you hurt bad enough that you have to. And number 3, if you make enough money that you are able to. You can change with those 3 things. Hurting. Okay, if you're educated enough that you know how to, you're hurting bad enough that you have to, or you make enough money that you're able to. I won't say you, but I'm going to just say most of us, if you hit the lottery, or somebody gave you $15 to $16 million, there's some things you could do because you are able to do it. You ain't going to be staying among us. You're going to get up on a hill where you can look down on us. Why? You're able to do it. You're able to do it. And the system makes you do it. Because if you don't if you don't invest it right, the government going to take it. So you got to put the money into places where you can get something out, and you can't give it all away. You won't be a millionaire. You never become a millionaire because you make money. You become a millionaire because you're able to keep some of it. Okay. So, there's people make $1 million and spend $1 million, they still just as broke as me. All right. Now, did we finish this? We didn't finish this chapter, did we? All right, read them. Who got them?
In a pan it shall be made with oil, and when it is baken, thou shalt bring it in, and the baken pieces of the meat offering shalt thou offer for a sweet savor unto the Lord. And the priest of his sons that is anointed in his stead shall offer it. It is a statute forever unto the
The
Lord.
word statute means a law. Go ahead.
And it shall be wholly burnt. For every meat offering for the priest shall be wholly burnt, it shall not be eaten. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and to his sons, saying, This is the law of the sin offering. In the place where the burnt offering is killed, shall the sin offering be killed before the Lord. It is most holy. The priest that offereth it for sin shall eat it. In the holy place shall it be eaten, in the court of the tabernacle of the congregation. Whatsoever shall touch the flesh thereof shall be holy. And when there is sprinkled of the blood thereof upon any garments, thou shalt wash that whereon it was sprinkled in the holy place. But the earthen vessel wherein it is sodden shall be broken, and if it be sodden in a brazen pot, it shall be both scoured and rinsed in water. And all the males among the priests shall eat thereof. It is most holy. And no sin offering whereof any of the blood is brought into the tabernacle of the congregation to reconcile withal in the holy place shall be eaten. It shall be burnt in the fire.
All right. Now, let me ask this question. So it's showing you all the regulations and rules. Everybody that works on a job, they have a job description. What they allow, what they don't allow, what the procedures are, and what they're not. Here they are right here. For the sacrifice, for everything that they did, that was the procedure. These were the laws of cleanliness, the laws to keep them healthy. So, when we, and this is what sometimes used to, doesn't now, would sort of irk me, is that people could follow regulations on their job. But when they come into the church and you have a few regulations, they don't feel they're necessary. They think that they're dogmatic. But they'll go on their job and they'll follow the rules and regulation. And somebody has to be in charge. The buck have to stop with somebody. You can't say, I couldn't say, well, I'm not going to be here Sunday, so whoever want to be in charge, just have your way, do what you want. It'll be a fight. Because you know who want to be in charge? Not just everybody, the less qualified person. Wait a minute, please, and Lord, if I'm saying something wrong, forgive me. But how many times you seen on the news where there's something that went on, and they're trying to find somebody, and then they find this person that can't even speak the language. Get off the way, get out of the way. Do you understand? It make everybody look bad. But that fool just want to be on television. They want folks to see them. Okay. So somebody have to be in charge of everything. It won't get job. It won't be done correctly. And so this book, Leviticus, is law and order. Laws and orders, procedures. How do you do things? So they had to make sure that they didn't, think what would have happened if they would eat meat out of those brazen bowls and let them sit there. And then go back again. So they washed them right on the spot and cleansed them. Now, this is another thing you have to understand what God was doing in the wilderness. He gave everybody a job. Nobody was not there potato couch people. Everybody had to do something. The women had to bring waters, cut wood, and the men had to work, and they had to do all this. Every day somebody had something to do. And guess what? They all came out of the wilderness, and the Bible said there was not a feeble one among them. And you're talking about 2 or 3 million people. Now, I can't even say that, and I prayed I could say it and be really truthful, but among us here, there's not a feeble one among us. There are more than feeble one. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
They had a convention in Los Angeles, and there was more alcohol consumed at that convention than all the other conventions in the hotel. Now, you know, when you listen to people's problems, like I feel sorry for Moses. I tell you, hearing all these problems over and over, it was a good thing Moses wasn't a drinking man, because I imagine he would, you know?
They caused them to miss the promised land.
Yeah.
So what we have went through, and we be continuing to go through, artness, which is stops, check yourself, don't do it. There are penalties for what you do. Yes.
I wanted to share, I was studying on the book of Leviticus, and I study systems books. It seems to imply that the book was a book of atonement, that God was looking back at the Jews when they were coming through the Exodus and saw that they had sinned against him, and so he placed these laws. I just want to put a little emphasis on the sacrifices and the offerings. There's 5. On the festival